From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Sony Gray. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been sworn in for his second term in office. The Supreme Court President Michael Moreno presented Maduro, who then took the oath of office before a diverse delegation of diplomats and world leaders.
Present in front of the Supreme Court of Justice, citizen Nicolas Maduro Moros, called on January 8, 2019, will swear in so that the exercise of his functions as constitutional president of the Republic of Venezuela for term 2019-2025 of justice. On behalf of the people of Venezuela, I swear for the legacy of those before us, for Negro Primero, Guayque Puro, and our Afro-descendant peoples. I swear for Liberator Simón Bolívar and the armies of liberation of our America. I swear for the legacy of our beloved commander Hugo Chavez. And I will fulfill and make all the statements and demands of the Constitution be fulfilled for the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to defend the independence and full integrity of the nation.
In his inaugural speech, he reminded everyone that he is a president of the people.
I come from the neighborhoods, the poor neighborhoods of Caracas. I was created in a forge that could only be understood if you've ever lived in it. You can only understand it if you have ever walked the paths, the fights of the humble. I come from the fights of the people for their economic and social rights. Our school has not been and will not be a school of dictatorships or imperialism. I was not trained in the South Command or Escuela de las Américas. I was forged in the neighborhoods of Caracas with the bus drivers of Caracas. This is where I come from.
No soy un magnate. Nosotros nos hemos formado en la escuela de los gorilas, de los golpistas, de los dictadores.
We were not trained in the school of dictators. We were not trained in the school of the oligarchies that hate the peoples that live off American imperialism. Our school has been social struggle. Assemblies of the unions with thousands of workers, with the students, with the poor people. That has been my training.
Meanwhile, crowds have gathered outside of the Supreme Court in Caracas to support the swearing-in ceremony. Members of several social and political movements, workers, students, and campesinos showed their support for the new government. People have also said they will not tolerate U.S. intervention.
We are here to defend our country, our resources, our president who was named by Hugo Chavez, our brother Maduro, our eternal commander who is defending us despite economic war. People are with him. Now we are all with Maduro.
We had the best elections in the country. We went through very difficult moments, but people still support our proposal for the country that Hugo Chavez left for us. My total support to our people in Maduro because he is the son of Chavez. We support him in a peaceful country where our battles have been only electoral and we have won. Venezuela should be respected. We are willing to defend our country.
We are here supporting our president, the president of the working people, a man who has fought for all of us. We support him today because we know the attacks he has faced from other countries, which do not know what a participative democracy means, which do not know what is the situation of the working women inside the revolutionary spaces. Today we are supporting the legacy of our commander Hugo Chavez. We defend our president Nicolas Maduro Moro. Here we are, President. one more time waving the flag of freedom because we are a sovereign country, a democratic country, because no interventionist empire is going to come to our country to tell us what to do. You, Maduro, you are our president, and you will be our president if we keep voting for you. We did it, and we will keep doing it.
And solidarity events have been planned around the world in support of President Maduro and the Venezuelan people. Social organizations gathered in front of the Venezuelan embassy in Buenos Aires. Speakers addressed support for the Bolivarian Revolution, saying that today is a day of celebration, but it's also a day of struggle. They stressed the importance of defending Venezuela against imperialism and also to defend Nicaragua, Bolivia, and all of the leftist leaders facing persecution throughout Latin America.
It is a propaganda campaign against Venezuela, which is seeking to legitimize the conditions of the imperialists. So far, they are not achieving it. We are here supporting the people, and we send our greetings to the people of Venezuela.
The Venezuelan government has accepted all of the results of the election, even those in which they had lost. Now a group of countries is threatening him, saying that they do not recognize the last elections in which Maduro was supported as president. There is also a serious threat of military intervention by Colombia and other countries which are following instructions of the United States. This is very, very serious, so we are here to support the decision of Venezuelan people and Maduro as the president chosen by his people in democratic elections.
And our correspondent in Argentina, Sabrina Roth, has the latest from outside the Venezuelan embassy in Buenos Aires.
We're here in front of the Venezuelan embassy in Argentina, where social and political organizations have been gathering here since early morning in support of Maduro, who is to be sworn in for his second term of office. They also gathered to protest against the United States' actions, as well as the Organization of the American States and the so-called Lima Group. They are also rejecting the calls to close all Venezuelan embassies. They say they gathered here to support the electoral process that took place last May as transparent and the democratic process that it was, supported by international observers, something that the Lima Group has called illegitimate. People here also sending their solidarity to the people of Venezuela and calling for respect for the sovereignty of people and countries.
And another rally is being held outside of the Venezuelan embassy in London. Demonstrators held banners which read "Hands off Venezuela" and "No to the U.S. blockade and U.S. intervention." Chileans are also standing in solidarity with the people of Venezuela and their president.
Greetings to the people of Venezuela and solidarity with the Bolivarian Revolution from a feminist Chilean. All my respect and greetings to the Venezuelan people who are resisting imperialist actions. Here in Chile, we are also facing a crisis because of capitalism, so we send warm greetings to our brothers and sisters in Venezuela who are still fighting for a better future.
People in Palestine also took to the streets in front of the Venezuelan embassy in a show of support for President Maduro. Palestinian citizens waved Venezuelan flags and banners in solidarity with the people of that Latin American country. So let's take a look back at the Venezuelan presidential election, which was held on May 20th in 2018.
The vote was held amid an economic boycott and a siege against the country. The government of Venezuela and the opposition, represented by the so-called Democratic Roundtable, held a dialogue process in the Dominican Republic, which failed after the far-right party refused to sign the agreement, due to last-moment pressures from the United States, as announced by the Venezuelan government. Weeks later, other sectors of the opposition signed an agreement of electoral guarantees alongside the Bolivarian government. As part of these agreements, the National Electoral Council called an election for May 20, a day which took into consideration the demands of the opposition. The presidential vote of May 20 saw the participation of the Venezuelan opposition in a race which had 4 candidates in representation of more than 50 political parties and movements of electors. In addition, more than 200 observers and international companions were present, who ratified the transparency of the electoral session, reviewing its results. 16 public audits were also carried out before, during, and after the electoral process. The result was a victory for President Nicolas Maduro, who was re-elected for the period 2019-2025, with more than 67% of the valid votes.
We'll take a short break now, but we'll have more news in a minute. Welcome back. Some Panamanian foreign affairs experts are saying that international relations are being manipulated to prevent big powers like the United States. They say Panama's participation in the Lima Group is a symptom of this.
Panama's foreign ministry has been harshly criticized for serving U.S.-aligned interests.
Former President Varela implemented policies that are far from the alleged neutral Panamanian position, a tradition of dialogue that our country has had throughout history. Now we serve North American foreign policies.
Panama, as a member of the Lima Group, tries to isolate Venezuela. This is a far cry from Panama's historically neutral stance.
Panama has done a lot throughout history, and it's not good for us as a nation to accept this. This even helps divide our country.
When it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, Panama was one of the few countries that voted against Palestine being recognized as a state. Panama has also remained silent on the many human rights violations.
Panama has aligned itself with these kinds of policies, and we can see how the government makes statements on certain countries but remains silent about others. However, when Panama remains quiet, it means that we are accepting crimes against humanity and injustice taking place in other parts of the world, such as Palestine and Yemen.
Panamanian social movements are still fighting to defend sovereignty and independence, not just for the country, but for their Latin American brothers and sisters.
Guatemala's President Jimmy Morales is insisting that the Commission Against Impunity leaves the country. But the Commission spokesperson, Mateus Ponce, said that the UN-backed body will finalize its work in September. The Constitutional Court overturned Morales' decision just a day after he tried to expel the mission from Guatemala. Human rights groups applauded the Constitutional Court's decision. Activists gathered in front of the court to support the ruling and the work of the International Commission Against Impunity. They say the lack of governance and growing corruption have contributed to an increase in the number of people leaving Guatemala in hopes of finding a better future.
The International Commission Against Impunity has to return because it's clear the existence of an illegal body and clandestine security apparatus that is part of a mafia economic political network embedded in the places you've already seen and that have been self-confessed.
Gas stations in some parts of Mexico have run out of fuel as the government continues to fight fuel theft. The government has temporarily closed down some state pipelines in a bid to end the theft that has cost the country an estimated $3 billion in 2017. People in Mexico City and central areas of the country spent hours waiting to fill up their tanks at the few stations that are still open. Meanwhile, the Mexican president has warned people to remain calm and to refrain from panicking.
It would be easy to reopen the pipelines and say it is back to normal. But we would do that knowing that they are still stealing it.
The Guarani community in Paraguay is camping in the capital of Asunción to protest after being evicted from their territory. They blame Brazilian businessmen for taking over their lands.
Families of the Mbia Guarani community known as Tacuari are camping in the middle of Asunción. They have been protesting for 3 months, asking the government to give them their territory back. But the government of Mario Abdo Benitez hasn't helped them until now.
We are fighting for our ancestral lands. We were evicted from our lands. Men hired by Brazilian businessmen did this. They also killed one of our leaders, Isidoro Barrios. His body wasn't even returned. This happened 5 months ago. The government hasn't done anything.
According to official figures, 76% of indigenous people in the country live in extreme poverty. Many move to the city in search of basic services and help that the state is not providing in their territories.
They say we are violent. They say that because we are defending our rights, because we are not taking more injustice. Our youth now know they cannot remain silent. We need to defend our rights.
The Guarani community was expelled from the country's border with Brazil, an area that has seen an increase of soya monocultures. A special report from the Olo Nos Ruralistas Observatory has shown that 14% of indigenous territories are in the hands of Brazilian businessmen.
These people think they own Paraguay. They don't respect our state authorities. The Attorney General, who should defend us and our rights, hasn't done anything for us, not even politicians or judges. We are dying because we have no support.
The families that are camping in Asunción say they want to return to their territory. They also announced they will reach out to other community groups to ask them to support their protests.
In Guyana, the government and the opposition have reached an agreement regarding the no-confidence vote against the ruling coalition. Both parties discussed general and local elections, as well as the functioning of the National Assembly and the government. President David Granger provided an update after a one-hour-long meeting with the opposition leader, Barrett Jagdeo.
As you know, the government has had legal recourse to the courts in order to determine the validity of the vote in the National Assembly on the 21st of December. This is quite legitimate, and there's no intention on the part of the government to derail the constitutional or legislative process. We have agreed that the two sides will continue to work together to engage GCOM to ensure that elections are held within the administrative capabilities of the Guyana Elections Commission. I would say in conclusion that we've had a successful engagement. Both the leader of the opposition and the president are concerned about the situation. We would like to assure the public in Guyana that we are working to a solution which they will be satisfied with. The public interest is our paramount concern.
Now, before we head to the break, Peruvian fishermen were delighted to be able to free a young orca trapped in a net. After being released, one of the fishermen said that the orca made a noise which they interpreted as "thank you." Entanglement is one of the biggest threats to marine animals. I agree, it did sound like he was saying thank you. Time for another break. More news after this. Celebrations have taken place in the Democratic Republic of Congo as the opposition leader was declared the winner in the presidential elections. Supporters of the winner, Felix Tshisekedi, took to the streets in the capital Kinshasa and the city of Goma to celebrate his victory.
We thank God and we thank President Kabila for his good faith. He's freed Congo. There you go. Today we are free.
But the runner-up candidate, Martin Fayulu, has rejected those results. President Joseph Kabila is set to step down in the coming days.
We categorically reject the result published by Election Commission President Mr. Kulney Nanga. May God Almighty bless the Congo.
School bells are ringing across South Africa as the first academic day of 2019 kicks off, but research shows that many of them will not make it through the country's education system due to South Africa's high dropout rates. Want this report from our correspondent in Pretoria, Matuba Malashe.
Metzing Primary School caters for children from mixed-income households around Soshanguve Township, north of Pretoria. Some of the students are here with the help of government social grants, while others hail from working-class homes, so their parents or caregivers are able to pay their fees. This is John Mulepo and his former primary school teacher, Selimu Tupi. John is now a PhD candidate and a lecturer at the University of the Northwest. He completed his primary and secondary education at nearby schools around Soshanguve. Now he's here to give back. John has rallied other graduates to help provide stationery and cover books for Metzing primary school pupils.
I remember with me, in my case, my parents were a challenge in terms of, the school gave us books, but then the, covering of, wrapping of books was a challenge at home. So I remember this is a case of my story when I was young. So I said to myself, maybe how many kids are still suffering from those things. So I said to myself, why can't we plow back to the community and do this thing, and maybe we can assist families out there.
John's social activism is an example to follow for mostly disadvantaged children at the school. He runs other campaigns that help aspiring university students cover their unaffordable university fees. John says social media has been instrumental in tracking down former pupils who want to give back to their old school. And former teacher Selimu Tupi says she's not surprised by John's generosity.
I met John as a young boy at Machaga Primary School in 2002 while he was in grade 4. He was a young, sweet boy. Then he was playing soccer by then. He was positive, he liked to explore so many things.
25 years into democracy, South Africa is still recovering from the unjust apartheid policies that prevented black people from receiving a quality education. In many cases, even if young people make it through university, they are bound by the financial shackles of now having to support their extended families. But the country is fortunate to have a new, inspiring generation of people like John who not only empower themselves through education, but also bend down to offer a hand to those climbing the ladder after him. Matumba Mahlachi, Telesur, Soshanguve in Pretoria.
The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has met the Egyptian president in Cairo. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Pompeo at the presidential palace. The Secretary of State also met with the Egyptian foreign minister. This meeting follows stops in Jordan and Iraq. Turkey's foreign minister has asked Russia and Iran to collaborate in their response to the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. During a press conference in Ankara, he said that the withdrawal process should be supervised by Turkey, Russia and Iran to prevent terrorist organizations from occupying the areas. He added that the U.S. is having difficulties withdrawing from the Kurdish People's Protection Units because they're too committed.
The United States is struggling to leave. It's not so easy to do so after dealing with the terrorist organizations. This is one of the difficulties that the United States is experiencing, but we see that there are different voices coming from different institutions. On the other hand, we want to coordinate this process with the leadership of our Western counterparts, and especially with Russia and Iran, with whom we have worked together since the Astana peace process. We don't want terrorist organizations to gain the benefits of that vacancy.
And we end with this truly unique sports story. A woman football coach in Syria is instructing a male team. Maya Janud said she believes that she's the first woman in the Middle East to coach a professional male team. She's currently an assistant coach at the Damascus club. Football is a male-dominated sport within the country. Also, the Syrian civil war prevented the women's team from playing football for several years. We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at hellisenglish.net. For views in Africa, remember, we can be found on Starsat 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria. Join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you for watching.